Quinn. Quentin Quinn. Think just because you have a Spanish conquistador's name, you're gonna get away with it? Nope. You've been dropped far too many times, sir. This is no telenovela. Please step up. You're now on Bust Watch. Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast and another episode of Bust Watch. This time we're talking about Quinn Hughes of the Vancouver Canucks, the fourth most dropped player on Yahoo today. And if you don't count some of the streaming options that people picked up, he's technically like the second most dropped player on Yahoo today, which is a little bit much. So we're going to talk about him and see why that is and if there's actually any merit to it. Now, before people get angry here, we're not calling Quinn Hughes a bust in general. Remember that Bust Watch is determined by when people are dropped. So when we see people start to get dropped too much, especially higher profile names that we think should or should not be dropped, then we cover them. This is not about us calling somebody a bust watch. But last time we brought Jakub Voracek back to life. So let's see if we can do that for Quinn Hughes this time around. Now, just to give you a quick preface to my thoughts on Quinn Hughes really quick is I'm going to try to make a case here that he might be Rasmus Dahlin from last year without the peripherals. So that's something to keep in mind. Mostly I like him for points leagues. In peripherals leagues, he's getting a little bit harder to roster, but I think there's a reason to be patient with him. Let's start first with daily faceoff and the lines. Let's talk about Quinn Hughes' deployment. Now, he's playing second pairing with Chris Tanev, and he's also playing second power play on this one with Tyler Myers, Josh Levo, Michael Furland, and Tanner Pearson. I don't really like that second power play, but whatever, at least he's getting some power play time. I would like to see him on that top power play, but I don't really see it right now over Edler. I don't quite see it happening. Now, that second pairing isn't awful, but they are getting more difficult minutes. Now, Edler and Myers are getting the most difficult minutes, but Hughes and Tanev are still getting difficult minutes. When we watched, for example, the game against Edmonton, they were away, and they chose to play against Hughes, but Hughes was exceptional. As we'll see, Hughes has been shockingly good when it comes to defense. I thought he was going to get sheltered offensive minutes, and that has not happened. And he's actually excelled at what he's done, which is one of the reasons I'm so high on him. So this is his deployment. I don't hate it, and I think there's upside there. I don't think that right now we're going to see him take over Edler's top power play spot, but I could see it happening sometime here in the middle of the season. So take a look also as proof right now of recording this at 3:12 Eastern time on a Friday. Quinn Hughes has been dropped 827 times. Now, Stalock was a spot start. Georgiev was a spot start. And so really only second to Dubnyk is Quinn Hughes being dropped. So now let's go over really quick to his stats. So he's getting around 20 and a half minutes a game. His pace right now is at around 41 points, which honestly isn't bad. As we'll get into, that's actually pretty similar to Dahlin's numbers last year. The shots aren't fantastic. I'd like more shots, but again, that a lot of that just comes from one where he's getting deployed in, so he's not getting as many offensive minutes, and on top of that, he's not getting as many minutes as you'd like in general. Like, I'd like to see that more like the 23s, 24s for him to start kind of be getting more shots, and of course, need to be top power play. On top of that, now his IPP is sitting at 33%. For a defenseman, that's not awful. I think a guy like Quinn Hughes' caliber, especially once he gets onto the top power play, that could be more in the 45-50-ish range. I think 40 to 45 is more around where I'd expect Quinn Hughes to finish this season at. Of course, last year he was at 60%, but he did spend some time on the top power play towards the end of the season. For average power play time on ice, so he's only playing 38% of the team's power play as a whole. So the team as a whole plays, what is that, like 5 minutes-ish on the power play? That's not right. Hughes is playing around 38% of the team's power play time on ice every game. 2 minutes and 32 seconds it adds up to right now, which is actually pretty good. I like that he's getting around 2 minutes and 32 seconds. This would switch. They're not running like a 50-50 power play, and that's the issue right now, right? The other one with Edler is getting around 60% of the time on the power play, which is really what's kind of holding him back. But the good thing is that of the power play shots that Vancouver have taken, he's actually getting 3% of those, or 9% of those. I looked at the actual shooting percentage. He's shooting at 33%, but he's getting 9% of those shots on the power play for Vancouver. And as you can see over here with the hits and the blocks, he's just not really hitting or blocking very much. 27 hit pace, 14 block pace. That's not fantastic. Now, before I leave this screen, I wanted to compare him really quick to Rasmus Dahlin and take a look at that. So this is Dahlin, and this is last year right here. So this row. He was on a 44-point pace. Of course, finished the season with 44. And Quinn Hughes right now is on 41 with not being top power play. So there's still room for potential there on Quinn Hughes to get power play. So last year we looked at Darlene. Darlene was rosterable pretty much all season. Granted, a lot of that is peripherals, but in a points league, you're looking at it, and if you're thinking, what you got to do here is you got to go back and look in a points league, for example, last year, and look at Darlene. Was Darlene rosterable? What was his average stats, or what was his total stats last year, and where did he finish in rank for your league? And if he finished pretty up there and was rosterable, then most likely right now Quinn Hughes is rosterable and actually has quite a bit of point upside still to be there, especially with his IPP being so low. I mean, last year Darlene finished at around 46%. So what was I saying? Quinn Hughes finishing in that 40 to 45% IPP range feels about right, and that's where Darlene finished last year. And this is Darlene is now at 65 this year. So when I'm looking at trajectory for what Quinn Hughes could be, I'm looking at Darlene not because he's necessarily at the same level of play as Darlene just yet. He might be, and as we'll get into here, he's actually been fantastic. But that's what I'm seeing as a trajectory of where he could get to. And if we look at the power play time on ice too, look, 285 for Darlene last year. Quinn Hughes right now, 232. So very similar. The trajectories are super similar. What is different is just those hits and block pace. That's all it is. Last year, Darlene got 97 hits with 66 blocks. Quinn Hughes isn't even going to sniff that. So really the difficulty and the reason people are dropping him most likely is because most play in standard Yahoo leagues or in leagues that count hits or blocks in their league, and that's where it starts to get a little bit tough. And if we look at the shot pace, actually, last year, Darlene actually outshot Quinn Hughes by quite a bit. And he got more ice time. He had 21:16, but not that far off, actually. 20:47 to 21:16 in average time on ice. That's not that far off. So again, what I'm seeing in Quinn Hughes is Darlene's rookie season without hits or blocks, pretty much to an extent. And then moving on from there, let's take a look now at Hockey Viz, where we talk about kind of the impact, right, the players have. So let's take a look at this season only. Now, this here 5-on-5 with is with Quinn Hughes on the ice. So when Hughes is on the ice, they generate more offense. Plus 2% of offense. Very impressive. Good, because when you look at 5-on-5 without, they're at minus 18%. So there's a pretty big gap between how much offense they generate with Quinn Hughes, without Quinn Hughes. And then when you look at without this is what's impressing me the most about Quinn Hughes right now. 5-on-5 with, when Quinn Hughes is on the ice, minus 30% threat levels. That's impressive as hell. And he's paired with Chris Tanev. And then without, look at that, plus 10%. And if you look at the threat levels with Hughes on the ice, look at where the red is. Some of it is outside of the blue line. Like it's chip-ins or something. Like there's nothing. They're not getting anything on Hughes. And Hughes tends to play on the left side. And look, there's nothing on the left side. It's all blue. There's a little bit of red. Most of the red is right here in the middle of the slot for a little bit, and then over on Chris Tanev's side. Quinn Hughes is playing fantastic on defense. No one expected that. All of us expected sheltered offensive minutes, and instead he's excelling at defense, which makes even more of a case that he could get more minutes later on in the second half of the season. And on top of that, he could actually get some pretty good power play time. Now, if we look at the power play here, it doesn't have actual threat levels from a percentage, but it does show kind of where the shots are coming from. And so with Quinn Hughes, most of them kind of come from the middle of the slot, but it's really low minutes, so I'm not even going to check this out too much. He hasn't taken too many shots on the power play, so if you look up here at 5v4 shot locations, you can kind of see the little dots in here. Yeah, not much. And then 5v5 shot locations, pretty much all from the point. He's taking all point shots right now, which I'd like to see him take the puck in a little bit and shoot from inside, but that's okay. We don't have to worry about that too much. Now looking at the Distiller, let's see who he plays with. So we know here that he's been good on offense, right? And we know he's been exceptional on defense, just like insanely exceptional, right? At minus 40%. But what I'm more interested here is his teammates. So you're seeing Chris Tanev, he's played 49 minutes with, plays a lot with JT Miller, Pettersson, and Besser. So about half his time, a little bit less than half his time is Pettersson and Besser. So that line, right? That top line. And he gets some minutes with Horvat as well. So he's kind of all over the place in terms of what forwards he plays with. They don't really try to pair that. But he's playing most of the minutes with Chris Tanev, and then most likely normally seeing JT Miller, who's just about half of his time. Okay, now let's get into a little bit of advanced stats for a second. So if you don't want to see advanced stats, go down to the comments. The verdict is down there. You can skip all these. But there's something so impressive about what Quinn Hughes is doing right now. I want to go over to Hockey Reference really quick. And I want to show you first his defensive zone start. So right down here, I'm going to I wish you could see my mouse, but here I'm going to highlight over here, zone starts, right? Even strength. He's getting 62% defensive zone starts. 62% defensive zone starts, and the Canucks are better at offense with him on the ice. What in the hell? That is so wildly impressive. And then if we look over here at Corsi percentage, so Corsi for percentage, how often are they out shooting opponents, and how much of the shot share is for the Canucks when Hughes is on the ice versus for the other team? He's at a whopping 62%, 63%, let's say. That is nuts. That is nuts, especially for a player who starts 62% of their shifts in the defensive zone. That's insane. Now, you can make the argument that he might be getting lesser competition, but in the away games, teams tend to target Quinn Hughes, actually. When we saw the Edmonton Oilers play them, it was usually the McDavid line against Quinn Hughes because the away team gets last change. The home team gets last change. So they'd put Quinn Hughes on the ice, and the Oilers would put McDavid's line on the ice to counter Quinn Hughes. And he's still doing this. So part of it is, sure, you can say on one hand he might be getting some easier competition when it comes to home games, but in away games they seem to be targeting him. And I don't know if that's smart. You probably shouldn't be doing that, but it's really impressive what this kid has done. When you look at the natural stat trick really quick, you look at the Corsi for percentage of everyone. Quinn Hughes is the second best skater. JT Miller, in my opinion, has probably been the best skater for the JT Miller's been the best forward for the Vancouver Canucks so far, just from an advanced stats perspective. Quinn Hughes has been the best defenseman by a mile. I mean, it's not even close. 58% Corsi for percentage. Tyler Myers is 52. So that's the next best defense is Tyler Myers on that top pairing with Alex Edler, and Tyler Myers and Quinn Hughes are on the same power play. And this is 5-on-5. This is not including the power play. And from an expected goals for standpoint, Quinn Hughes is second. He's killing it. And on top of that, he has one of the lowest expected goals against. Of course, there's JT Miller, Pettersson, Besser right there. He's 8th in expected goals against. Let's not count Louis Eriksson. He's played 1 game. Then you look at Gaudette, played 3 games. Tyler Mott, 2 games. So he's pretty much 4th if you count players that have actually played a lot of games. So he's been fantastic. He's second in expected goals for percentage as well, which is just kind of the difference of the two. He's been fantastic every single way you look at it. Most high danger chances for while he's on the ice. Like, this kid deserves more minutes, more offensive. He just deserves more minutes in general. And so to me, I'm seeing a guy who has a ton of point potential. He has pretty much Darling levels of expectations, and on top of that, potential. I think mostly when you look at it, I think if you're in a peripherals league, and let's say you're struggling a little bit in points, or for example, say you've got a Gostisbehere, for example, and Quinn Hughes is dropped, I'd rather have Quinn Hughes. I think Quinn Hughes' upside, just from a points perspective, is better. Now, granted, Gostisbehere did shoot 6 times in that last game, but the Flyers in general shot like 50 times or whatever it was. So I think everyone on that team was over-indexed. But my point is, if you're in a points league, he's worth holding, and he's worth being patient for. I think you need to give him a really long leash because everything points to Quinn Hughes deserving more opportunities and being a force of nature. And I could very easily see him in the next 2 months or so taking over that top power play and potentially even getting top pairing and getting a lot of minutes. He's playing fantastic, and it only makes sense to keep using your best defenseman more. That's what would make sense. And on top of that, I mean, he's at a 41-point pace, like I said. Darling last year was at 44. So in a points league, long leash. In a peripherals league, I'd feel out your league. If you think that in a league, if you're in a smart league, there might be someone who might grab him and stash him. For example, someone dropped him in one of our listener leagues, which is benchless, and I picked him up. I dropped Gostisbehere and picked up Quinn Hughes, and I'm going to stash him and wait and see. I'm going to give him a leash, and that's with peripherals. I'm going to see what he does from a points perspective. It's hard to find point defensemen. Now, if you think that, for example, Cale Makar is worth rostering, guess what? Quinn Hughes could be just as valuable in a few months. And so that's where I see it. Now, if you think you're in a league, for example, where like stupid people are getting dropped and there's just a lot of really good names on the wire, and you don't think anyone would grab Quinn Hughes, then perhaps it's worth dropping Quinn Hughes right now and just putting him on your watch list and paying very, very close attention to what happens and when he does get that good deployment. Overall, my message is hold and be patient. And if you can weather the storm, I think it would be worth it. Now, again, it comes with that caveat, especially in a peripherals league, where you're not going to get peripherals from him, probably very, very unlikely rest of season. But you do get the points upside. And so for me, I wouldn't be really trading for him or anything like that. I have him in my Dynasty League, traded for him last year, but I'm very high on Quinn Hughes. And as the numbers show, he's pretty damn good. And he's excelling in places that I don't think, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was short-sighted in that, but I did not expect him to be as good defensively as he's been. And normally when a player is good defensively and they're also good offensively, that's when you see a guy start to get those 25, 26 minutes, because now you can trust him in every single situation on the ice. So I'm curious to see how this continues for Quinn Hughes. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think about Quinn Hughes down below. Also be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Throw it a like if you liked it. And let us know what other players you'd like us to talk about. We have a little bit of a list of people we're thinking of bringing out, so pay attention. There should be a hot hands video coming out today as well. Hopefully you enjoyed. See you next time.